everybody. This is Nancy Novak, Chief Innovation Officer for Compass Datacenters. Welcome to the next episode of Breaking Glass. Today, we're going to be talking about leveraging non-traditional backgrounds to boost diversity and inclusion in the construction industry. We have with us today Allison Scott, who is Director of Customer Experience and Industry Advocacy at Autodesk. Allison is an innovation champion for construction, and what's so great about this is the lead-in is she has a very diverse and unusual background. Allison, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nancy.
Let's hear a little bit about your background and how you got into the industry so we can lead right into the other items that we want to talk about when we talk about diversity, inclusion, transferable skills, and how to make the industry more robust when it comes to that diversity.
Absolutely. So I did not come into construction from a traditional construction management or architecture or engineering background. In fact, my background is in theater and arts management. I always had a big passion for being able to communicate and tell stories, and really fell in love with theater because of all of the moving pieces that actually go into creating a production. So I went to a theater arts high school, shout out to Baltimore School for the Arts, which really was a place that taught me to use my voice and taught me to understand that there was always something bigger going on than what was written on the page. And from there, I went to college, Emerson College, where I again studied theater. And when I was at Emerson and when I was in college and understanding sort of what I wanted to do next for my career, what I saw was this need for people that had an understanding of what the future was going to hold for a variety of industries. And at the time, in the early 2000s, like technology and the growth of the internet was really starting to take hold in the way that businesses were being developed. So it just so happens that I also had a really strong interest in the power of technology. And I'm very lucky that both of my parents worked in the technology fields. And so I had some exposure to what was happening with exponential tech and what was happening with e-commerce and a number of different ways that technology was in changing our world. So I actually ended up out of college going to work for a technology futurist. And in that world, I found this love of being able to translate really technical, kind of complicated insights or ways of doing work down to the average person. And it was because of my theater training and because of my communications training that I learned how to do that. Taking these really big concepts, these really big ideas, and putting them into action or turning them into a language that, the average person like me could understand. So from there, I was drawn to and found my next career in the built environment, which was another, super interesting industry, something I had never considered before, but I kind of fell into it because I was leaving a technology focused job, but I really wanted to go more into that marketing world and really focus more on like, how do I continue this trajectory of telling great stories? And I found myself in architecture doing marketing, business development, strategy, a little bit even office management and accounting. And it's just like my career that's when I really found my home, was understanding that working in the built environment, I could physically see the work being created, the impact of my time in an office, and work with some amazing, smart people, and also help them be better by being able to use my communications training and really translate the work that we were doing to the communities that we were working with, to the clients that we were working with. So that's sort of like the background that I fell into. That's how my background really changed the way that I entered into this industry. And it was not not on purpose.
It's amazing because I always tell people my career was somewhat serendipitous. I did get trained, in construction management, but nonetheless, the opportunities came very happenstance and serendipitously. And I love that story. I think that's so good for our listeners to understand that literally when we say transferable skills, we mean from any business sector or domain. You can 100%. Have transferable skills, right? Yeah. And being able to boil something down and simplify it to where people can understand it. I mean, it's just like what Einstein said, that's what we need is when you can take this complicated idea and then explain it to people. That's how we can scale and make change, right?
Absolutely. Also, like, one of the things that I tell people, especially young people that are thinking about like, what is their career going to be, or what is their next step after high school or after college. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was that you are more than just one thing. You don't have to be just an engineer. You don't have to be just a artist. You don't have to be just a marketer. All of those skills are valuable, but when you add additional components to them, or you add a different perspective, or you add an interesting skill set to them, you become more valuable in that you're able to basically code switch and see things from a different lens. And you're also adding skills that enable you to be better for yourself and for the business that you work for.
I like that. It's like you're more than just one thing is a very profound way of putting that. And it's almost like you can take the things that, come either naturally or that you're passionate about, and they can be your superpowers within any
100%.
Right? That's so great. That's so great, Allison. As you know, the diversity comes in all forms, and we need more diversity in the construction industry. Women are still, highly underrepresented in the business. And I would love to hear your thoughts on, not just how we can make a change there, but also why that is.
Absolutely. So I think, we have a fundamental problem in the construction industry in that a lot of our work, literally happens behind closed doors. So I think oftentimes, people just don't understand the vast amount of roles that are available in this industry. They don't physically see people on the site just in the same way. You're either behind a job site fence, you're in a job site trailer, maybe you're 10 stories up. All of this kind of work that happens that might be visible is often seen as, muddy boots or, installation. And the work that does happen in the field, especially for those for our tradespeople, is incredible, and it requires an amazing amount of skill. And we do need more women coming into the trades as well. But the point is that there are a lot of opportunities in construction that don't have to that aren't always seen, right? We need people that are great communicators. We need people in marketing, in business development, in strategy, in accounting, in project management. All of these things require a diverse skill set. And oftentimes women are overlooked for that simply because they don't often come through the traditional pathways into the construction industry. So that's one of the reasons why looking for and attracting and building a program that sees finding a pipeline of people that come from other backgrounds can actually increase adding more diverse personnel to your job sites as well. So, the other thing about adding more women into construction is that you can't be what you can't see. So this is actually one of the reasons that Autodesk partnered with AGC a little while back ago, and we developed something called the Diversity Media Library. Now, this is something that's very simple. We were starting very small, but the point here is that how do we actually represent more diverse faces, literally more diverse faces, in the imagery that we use in media articles about our industry. No more stock photos. That is my mantra. No more stock photos. We need photos that are representing real people of color, women, people of different genders and different sexual orientations. And we need to see people that are more diverse, both in imagery as well as on the job site. So, there's actually studies that indicate that for young women, seeing images of what it could look like in careers, women in engineering, women in technology, women in construction, like that is a signifier that, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. I'm going to go explore that. I'm going to go see what that's all about.
I'm so happy you brought that up because I totally believe that so firmly. And I know those stats exist, those studies. It's very similar to the Gina Davis Initiative for Gender in the Media. And it's all about if she can see it, she can do it, right? And I was just at a conference the other day called Women Spanning the Globe. And Mark Pritchard, who's the Chief Branding Officer for Procter & Gamble, did a presentation called We See Equal. And so if you watch cable television, you see these amazing advertisements that are helping us normalize having different roles and wearing different hats amongst, not just diverse folks when it comes to culture and ethics and, but also gender. It's really heartfelt. And I looked at that and I thought that what you're saying, Allison, is, for us to normalize and find it desirable, acceptable, good and all that stuff, and to really scale, we have to start showing what it can look like so that people go, oh, that's, I can do that too. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of the first steps, right? It's not the only thing that we need to do as an industry to improve attracting and retaining more women into construction or people of color or the LGBTQ community. I mean, representation is an incredibly important thing that helps to drive more diversity. And then from diversity, then you really start talking about what does inclusion look like. And that's the harder part.
Well, and
frankly.
that was exactly going to be kind of my follow-on question.
Oh, good.
I mean, when it comes to the whole see it and be it thing, I have to say, like, the stats from what I remember are it's within 1% of real life what you see on a daily basis from all forms of media, right? So if with a stroke of the pen or new imagery, we can really make a big impact, I think, in any industry. But I do want to ask you, so let's say that we are able to move this needle forward and bring more diversity into the business, which, by the way, in my experience, we have figured out how to fill the engineering classes. A lot of 50% of many of the engineering classes are women now. And we've had pretty good success filling the pipeline at the entry level. But then we're really struggling and dropping off when you get into that mid-management level. So I guess my question is, as a follow-on to getting more diversity is how do we keep them, and what needs to change about our industry to help make that a possibility?
Yeah, and this is I think the big ultimate question, and I don't think that there's one silver bullet here in any way. I think that there's lots of things that need to change. The legacy of construction is something that we are contending with as a whole. And it's something we have to acknowledge, right? We have a legacy of a primarily white male dominated industry and a very familial, right? Which is amazing. So many people came up in this industry from their family members or had family members in this industry. And so for a long time, our industry has been very siloed in that there's a construction person looks one way, acts one way, thinks one way. And the risk there is that we are going to continue, if we're only pulling from the primary silo or the primary pipeline, we are going to continue to be siloed in not just who's coming into our industry, but how we think about our industry and how we work, frankly. And we also know that we need to change. I mean, everybody has already heard, and I don't want to repeat the stat, but we already know that construction is one of the least digitized and one of the least productive industries that we have. And we also have a stat that says, we need to build 13,000 buildings a day in order to support the growing population of this earth. So there's big challenges that we have to overcome. So pulling in diverse people is one step, and now attracting them and having them really improve the way we work is incredibly important. So one of the big things that I have seen is that culture and the way that we create an inclusive culture really starts from the top down in our industry. So we need strong leaders that say we don't tolerate things like hate speech. We create environments where everyone is considered equal. We have real equality on the job site. We have equality in the office. We create spaces that are psychologically safe so that we can say we want to do things differently, and we're taking inputs from all corners of our business to do things better. And I think we're actually seeing some really good examples of that begin to happen in the industry. In fact, there was an incident recently, I believe, that I heard about. I think I saw it on Facebook or LinkedIn, of a job site where hate speech, for instance, was scrawled in a restroom. It was a women's restroom, and very alarming, right? Something that is still happening today, unfortunately. But what I saw was the construction manager who was overseeing this job put up a $25,000 reward to find the person that had done that hate speech. I mean, talk about commitment to change the culture and say we have zero tolerance for this kind of behavior. And that kind of support and leadership, let me tell you, I get goosebumps just thinking about that, because that shows true commitment in changing the past, changing the legacy that we are all fighting against, and that we want to move into the future of how we are embracing lots of different types of people in our industry. And there's no tolerance for hate speech. There's no tolerance for, behaving in that way on our job sites any longer.
And that is a huge part of it, is making everyone feel welcome, right? And safe.
Absolutely.
And I take that down to the, having the right apparel for the, for the PPE that fit women versus men, and making sure that you have the facilities that can make them comfortable. I love that frontline approach of, the campaign that the Steel Union has about be that one guy. I found in my experience too that everyone has a policy, right, about what you should and shouldn't do, which it seems you need that. But it's really when the folks on the job take personal accountability and say, I personally will not tolerate this, like you were just pointing out, that's when that it seems to really make a big impact. So I'm really happy to hear that.
A lot of construction companies now have a culture of, see something, say something in terms of safety. I see somebody on a ladder that's higher than 6 feet who's not tied off. I see something that was placed in the wrong place, or somebody entering or going to be stepping into an unsafe zone. We have a culture now that is much more supportive of, seeing something unsafe and saying, oh, wait, we have to stop. We got to stop work. We got to fix the situation. And those moments should be rewarded, and that should continue. So that same energy that we're bringing to improving safety for everybody on the job site, we also have to bring to creating a more inclusive environment. So I just wanted to echo
that it goes hand in hand. And I think that is something that the industry has adopted pretty well. So they should be able to shift and put those lenses on when it comes to that diversity and inclusion. So totally agree. So I was going to kind of shift into some of the other ways in which I know Autodesk is very involved in making improvements and changes in the industry through technology. And so I was kind of going through in my head, the various things about our industry that make it, I would call it, let's use the word inconvenient. You have long commutes to and from work. The hours are bad. If you are the primary caregiver, you may have issues with daycare. You also have the brute strength and machoism that kind of plays in. And you had mentioned earlier the familial, the way we pass things down from family members. Gosh, back in the old days, a lot of the ways in which we span distances and did work was trade secrets within families, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the genesis of that. And so I'm looking at all these different things that make it a struggle for other folks to enter that business. And I love the idea of, like you said, doing the campaign where visually we change how we feel about this, and that we can all be a part of it. But I would like to understand better, how do we get to where, we can have a normalized, shift hours, not have to focus on brute strength alone, those types of things that will make it better for the industry in the future. I know there's probably more than one answer to that, but what are your ideas around that, Allison?
Well, we actually have a really great example of how this industry is evolving. If we look just in the past 2 years, I mean, the pandemic alone has greatly accelerated technology adoption and a number of just ways that we work in our industry. I was talking to a senior project manager friend of mine recently, and she was on this really big hospital job. And in fact, I just wrote about this in a blog post, and I talked about this at AU as well. She was overseeing this huge hospital job during the middle of the pandemic. I mean, it was a bear. It was an older building, trying to be connected to a newer building, downtown environment, no clearances, zero lot line, all of that thing. Also trying to keep the hospital operational in the middle of COVID. And this is a quintessential building. This is an essential project that needed to continue. So they had to completely rewrite the script in what they were doing and how they were doing it in COVID times. They, adjusted their shift hours so that they could have the right amount of people coming in when they needed to come in to do their work. They had to completely relook at the schedule. They supported.
Imagine that, flexibility in hours.
Imagine that. Yeah. Imagine that. A massive amount of flexibility suddenly was opened up.
Yeah.
The ability to remote work, right? massive new additions of technology. They increase their use of their collaboration tools. They increase their use of digital communication tools like Zoom. Moving away from doing OAC meetings, in person, but doing them virtually, where people had to deal with kids. People had to deal with, I can't come in. I'm not on shift right now, but I'll be able to do the calls virtually. Just lots and lots of shifts very, very quickly. And, we were talking, and the job is closed now for her. And she was really worried about, hey, I don't want to change and go back to the way things were done before. I like this flexibility. I like being able to do my stand-up meeting from, virtually with the team. I like being able to pick up my kids at 2:30. And, there's a big energy around, like, how do we keep some of these practices? Because this actually makes my job easier. It makes my job,
more balance in your life,
more
right?
balance. Exactly. Yeah. It's like,
I have a little secret for you. The men like that too. Men actually do like to pick their kids up from school,
100%.
And attend their sporting events, and have some flexibility. So that's the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So
I do.
There's
studies out there that indicate that when you make a work environment more flexible towards quote unquote women, you actually make it more flexible and supportive and safe for everybody. So it's like if we keep that in mind, that it's not just for women, it's actually it's for women, but it's also benefiting the entire culture of our industry. Why wouldn't you want to invest in that?
Yeah. And and as you and I, we both know, the skilled trades, no matter what color or race or gender you are, they're depleted. We desperately need that skill set. And to make it more attractive, if it brings us more diversity, which I think is really the goal here, it will also bring in more folks into the trades, because again, people need to balance their lives. And think about, like, I did a presentation a few months back about, some of the systems like exoskeletons and ways that you can use. You don't have to, and I was like, yes, it allows, like, more women to be able to lift heavy tools, but it also doesn't, it makes it so it's safer, and it doesn't deteriorate the men who are able to lift those tools as well. So it's that rising tide lifts all boats thing. I really love the neutralization of saying, we're making the industry better for everyone, not just for women, right? So I think that's super critical. So I have to ask, when you think about, like, if you were to start all over and you were, I wanted to say Compass we have lots of female CMs in the U.S. In fact, in the U.S., all of our CMs are female, and many of them came from very different backgrounds. And I would love to have this message from you, Allison, about, like, if you're in a different domain or in a different industry, how can they find out about this as a career choice, and how do they get into it? Who do they call? How do they, because I really want us to discuss the potential of being able to do what you did versus having to check boxes on these credentials that we think we traditionally need to get into the business.
I think one of the easiest things to do, just sort of place to start, is investigating, like looking around and investigating, like, what are some of the top construction companies in your area or in the nation, because there is a lot of flexibility now with remote working, that are doing things differently. And also and do a little bit of Googling on, like, top women in construction or top construction leaders for innovation. Innovation overall is now a tenant in most construction companies, because they recognize that innovation isn't just about technology. It's about overall improving the way that we work, so we can sustain the future of construction in a way that is going to be able to really advance how we work, who we work with, how we get people into this industry, and how we really change the legacy perceptions of our industry, which have historically been fairly negative. So I think there's also some really great examples of some women leaders that also came about in their roles from a non-traditional angle. And I'm just gonna shout them out. One of the first people that I think about is the Chief Data Officer of Suffolk Construction, Jit Keach, and she's amazing. She's actually came from a consulting background and has an expertise in data and analytics. And she's really pushing Suffolk Construction forward, becoming a data-driven business. So, and she's out there talking a lot about what the work is that she's doing and what her journey was like. So that's another great example of watching somebody who came from a non-traditional background, who is now in construction, really supporting the future of Suffolk and how they are advancing into a modern construction business. And the other is another friend of mine, Anita Woolley Nelson, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Skanska USA. And Anita, while she grew up in construction industry, she came about her role through marketing. Again, a great example of how when you have great communication skills and you are able to translate the value of strategy and how you make a client's experience better, like those skills are extremely powerful. And she's helping Skanska set themselves, again, the course to the future. What does their business look like? And these are just really wonderful, amazing leaders in our industry that came about their success through non-traditional means. So there are women out there speaking about their work. There's amazing firms out there trying to do things differently. It might need to do a little bit of Googling, but you can also take a look at folks like our digital builder blog for Autodesk Construction Cloud. We talk a lot about folks that are doing things differently in those forums. And we really invite people to come in and see what we see.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I know that we typically give advice to, to companies about, neutralizing when they're going out in recruiting, right? We say on the resumes or on the job descriptions rather, please try to focus on attributes. Don't focus on, like ticking the box on this many years or type of education. Right?
Or you have to have a CM background education. Yeah. That's actually a really great call out, Nancy. I think too, from a leadership perspective inside of construction firms, it's really important to think outside the box in terms of like, what are the skills I'm looking for? Not what is the degree I need. So, and being open to looking for people that are coming into this industry that could actually help you think differently about what you're doing to improve the way you're working.
Well, and I've been speaking a lot about the digital divide, and one of the many things that we have to talk about and focus on is these algorithms that kick out a resume because there's a gap, because someone stopped to have a child, or because of the credentials not there. And we're already hard enough on ourselves as women, where we want to check every box 3 times before we move on. And it's really important that these algorithms, allow the opportunity for a more diverse, set of interviewees, right? So I think that's something that we should definitely improve on. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Allison, but I love how Autodesk has like the best stats in the industry on so many levels when it comes to, like you said, the innovation stat and how, how construction is like I think we're down there. I always joke, like we're down there with the dangerous fishing and mining, industries when it comes to like really embracing, the digital transformation of things and really, utilizing the new technology. So that kind of stat and any stat you have that relates to like, where our needs are as with the skilled trades and with the industry going forward. I love stats.
Well, I think here's one for you. I mean, during COVID, there was a recent stat from a recent report that we did with IDC indicating that since the pandemic, 95% of construction companies have increased their adoption of digital tools. So it's happening. It's happening right now.
Yay.
The other challenge, however, is that digital tools also enable you to create and capture more data. So that's the other side of that coin, is that something like 90% of data on construction sites goes unused. So we have this massive gap right now of where we're driving towards using more digital tools, more digital transformation, which is amazing. It's happening. And a lot of construction companies see the value in that. They're also now going through this transformation of saying, okay, wow, I have more data than in some cases I know what to do with. So how do I put this to work? So that's where interesting and non-traditional roles for our industry really comes into play. If you have background in business intelligence, data analytics, data visualization, your skills are incredibly valuable right now in construction. So that's, that's another angle to consider for people that might be looking for like, what's how can I put my skills to work? The construction industry needs your help. And we need your help in pre-construction. We need your help in field execution. Using data and putting it into action is really where our industry is trying to get a handle right now. So like focusing on that is a great opportunity. And that goes for people that are just coming into this industry too. Think about going and adding a data analytics certificate to your bench, right? Go do a project management certificate that has an angle for business intelligence or data visualization, not just, how do I make sure that my scope, schedule, cost are all on track? Because all of that is important, but being able to tell a really great story around it and using data as your backup, that's going to really set you on a trajectory for your career.
No, I mean, that's such a great example of, being able to talk to the folks out in with our audience and say, if you're interested in this, which many people are very interested in it, data is powerful, right? This has a huge opportunity for you. And I do want to point out that the construction industry is a very large part of our GDP on a global scale. The digital transformation of everything is the fourth industrial revolution. So there's no slowing down when it comes to building cloud products and edge products and so on and so forth. And it's one of those industries that touches everyone's lives, not just from the built environment, but from the digital environment, right? I mean, because every industry that you can think about has to have a physical structure to reside and do business. And they also have to have a place to store their data, use their data, apply their data, transact with their data, so on and so forth. So those two things go hand in hand, really, really good. So we are getting almost to time, Allison, and I would love to have some closing comments from you just on, inspirational things for our audience to, kind of get excited about this industry and want to come in and, and fight the good fight with us.
I think there is so much opportunity in this industry from the things that we talked about in terms of being able to apply data, apply innovation, apply technology in unique ways. We're really just at the cusp of that. So we have folks that are really trying to improve the way we work in very unique ways. And that's one of the things that I get super excited about. I mean, think about, so I have an 8-year-old son, and he's super into online games right now and building virtual worlds, right? Think about Roblox and Minecraft. We are literally cultivating the next generation of built environment workers by setting them on a path to use digital tools right now today. So I get super excited about what the future holds, especially with the confluence of technology, the metaverse, and the physical built environment. And I hope everybody else gets as excited as I do about it. And yeah.
Thank you. I am also like such a big fan of our industry. It's never boring. I would say that. You always learn about every industry that you build for. And for those who are, very interested in, environmental biology or sustainability, our industry represents over 40% of the global greenhouse gas. 29% of that is, really maintaining, operating, and upgrading buildings. But 11%, give or take, is about the delivery process. So that's a whole nother skill set and passion and interest that can enter our business and have a huge impact on what we're trying to do with our Earth. So yeah, I love the passion that you have, Allison, and I really, really appreciate you being on Breaking Glass. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.